Hey everybody, Michael P. Spradlin here. I'm back with chapter 30 of The Youngest Templar, Keeper of the Grail. And hold on to your hats because it's getting down to the end and it's pretty darned exciting. Who knows what's going to happen to our heroes. So remember, check authors take action, hashtag authors take action, hashtag authors give back, hashtag books are essentials. Find other authors out there doing all kinds of stuff to offer something extra and a little bit of entertainment and enjoyment during this time. So let's jump right into chapter 30 of The Youngest Templar. Whoa. They're a ways down the street, moving slowly and searching the alleys. At least 6 men-at-arms. They'll be here in minutes. At her feet, the dog whined, circling about us as if it wished to move us in a direction, any direction, as long as it led to safety. Robard, what do you say? Are you coming with me? I asked. Well, I don't have much choice now, he said with a measure of disgust, starting down the dock to where the longboat was tied. Aren't you going to say goodbye? Miriam called after him. He turned with a puzzled expression on his face. I already said goodbye once. Good luck to you, assassin. I thank you for rescuing us from jail and for not killing us. Goodbye, Archer. Keep practicing with that bow. You can't count on a lucky shot every time, she said. Robard's face went red, and he muttered something I couldn't hear and stomped off down the dock, climbing into the boat. Miriam smiled as he retreated. I followed after Robard, and Miriam walked quickly alongside me. The dog was still growling and whining as we approached the boat. Well, Miriam, unlike last time, I guess this is really goodbye. Thank you for coming to our aid, I said. Please take care of yourself. I hope, well, someday perhaps we will meet again. Goodbye to you, mysterious Tristan of the Templars. You should know that the Templars are greatly feared among my people. You do their order proud. You are brave, but more important, you are noble. I believe that Allah shines his light on you. Take care, my friend, she said. By then we were next to the longboat, and unexpectedly Miriam reached out and took me in a tight embrace. Her arms were fast around my shoulders, and my face was pressed into her hair, which still smelled of sandalwood. I felt dizzy and a little uncomfortable. I did not know how long we stood there, but it felt like an hour passed. Finally, the crew and the captain waiting in the boat, and Robard as well, began to cough uncomfortably. Miriam released me, touching my face with her hand. I felt my cheeks burning, standing there speechless, not knowing what to do next. Tristan, said Robard. Tristan? Tristan, he hissed. Finally, I came to my senses. Yes? The boat. We need to escape. Bad men are after us. You do remember, he smirked. Yes, of course, I replied, climbing into the boat and sitting next to Robard. The dog began whimpering and finally let out several low barks. She moved up to the edge of the dock, making as if she wanted to jump into the boat with me. No, girl, stay, I told her, but she only whined more. The captain pushed off with an oar, the crew began towing, and we slowly moved parallel to the dock. Miriam and the dog walked with us for a ways. There was a shout from the end of the dock. Halt! Don't move another step. A voice hollered from the darkness. I recognized Sir Hugh's high-pitched voice immediately. The sound of running feet could be heard coming up the dock. Miriam was trapped. Go back, I yelled to the captain. No, sir, he said. I want no trouble with those soldiers. I glanced back at the dock. Miriam stood frozen, and the dog was jumping and barking as the men drew closer. Robard, hold him off, I said. Robard stood and strung his bow in a single motion. In seconds, he had pulled an arrow from his wallet, took aim, and let it fly toward our attackers. It landed a few feet in front of Sir Hugh, who for once in his life was leading an attack. Admittedly, attack on a single girl and a small dog, but still he took the front. When the arrow thunked into the dock, he skidded to a stop. Halt! Immediately! In the name of the Knights Templar, I demand you return at once, he shouted. Robard answered with another arrow, which landed even closer. Sir Hugh took several steps backward and barked an order to his men. Crossbows! Now we were in trouble. The men-at-arms sheathed their swords, pulling their crossbows from around their backs. They began to load the bolts. Our time was running out. The only advantage lay in the fact that crossbows are difficult to load. Once they release a bow, it can take a minute or more to reload. Miriam had drawn her daggers and stood crouching at the end of the dock, ready to go down fighting. The dog was yapping furiously. The crew had started to really pull at the oars, and we moved farther from the dock. Go back, I shouted again at the captain. No, laddie, he said. I pulled my sword and placed it at his neck. He gulped, and his men stopped rowing. I'll give you 2 seconds to change your mind, I told him. Reverse! To the dock, he shouted to his crew. He must have paid his men well, for they didn't hesitate, reversing the oars, and we moved slowly backward toward the dock. Robard, watch the crossbows. I attempted to keep an eye on Miriam and the other on the captain, lest he change his mind. The first bolt whistled at the boat, striking the side, but it glanced off, doing no damage. Robard let loose with another arrow, and a second later I heard a scream from one of the men-at-arms and saw him crumple to the dock. We were still about 10 feet away from Miriam. Miriam, we're coming, I assured her. She looked back at us and then at the men still several feet away down the dock. Without a word, she backed up a little, took a running start, and leapt through the air to the boat. "Look out!" the captain hollered. Miriam landed on top of Robard and me. Luckily, Robard was not in the act of shooting, or she might have been pierced by another of his arrows. We all landed in a heap at the bottom. The boat rocked back and forth, and for a moment I thought we might capsize, but then it steadied. "Go!" I yelled. The captain and his crew rowed furiously. Sir Hugh and his men reached the end of the dock. Two of them dropped to their knees, taking aim with their crossbows. I pushed Miriam to the side, and both of us crouched beneath the gunwales of the boat. Robard, however, stood, drew another arrow from his wallet, and let it fly at the dock. It landed in a post about 6 inches from Sir Hugh's head. "Darn the luck!" He shouted in surprise and very quickly moved behind the men-at-arms. With each second, we gained distance. Another bolt from a crossbow whistled toward us, but missed again, landing in the water beyond the bow. I noticed something moving in the water by the dock that caught my eye. The dog. It had jumped off the dock and was swimming toward us. Miriam saw it too. "Tristan, look," she said, pointing. "I see it," I said. "Captain, I'm not going back again, not against those crossbows. Strike me down if you must, but I'll not risk my life and crew for a mutt," he said. The dog bobbed and floated in the water, striking mightily to catch up with us. We were almost out of range of the crossbows. Without thinking, I stood up, unbuckled my sword, dropped the satchel to the floor, and dove into the water. I was an adequate swimmer, having learned in the river by the Abbey, but I hadn't swum in a long while. I kicked forward, plowing through the water with my arms, trying to keep my head up and the dog in sight. It was difficult, and I slipped beneath the water a few times to confuse the bowmen, but I slowly closed the gap. When I reached her, the dog was nearly exhausted. I grabbed her in one arm and turned toward the boat. I was in range of the crossbows, and although I was completely disoriented in the water, I could hear Sir Hugh shouting, "Shoot him! Shoot him!" The bolts whistled over and around me in the water, but miraculously none of them hit me. I paddled away with my one arm, the dog clutched tightly in the other, kicking furiously. Off somewhere I could hear Robard shouting to the captain, but I was tired and the boat slipped further away. I drifted under the water once, then again. Each time I burst to the surface, spitting out water. My legs were cramping and I had no strength left. Exhausted and not sure I was going to make it, I came to the surface only a few yards away from the boat. With every ounce of strength I had left, I kicked mightily. It was not enough. I felt something hard knock me on the shoulder. Reaching up, I grabbed a piece of wood and was pulled through the water. It was Robard leaning over the side of the boat and pulling me in with his bow. Hands lifted me up and over the side. I slumped to the floor with Robard holding me up by the shoulders. He shouted at the captain to get moving, and Miriam took the dog from my grasp. She set it on the seat in front of us, and it shook the water from its coat, looking at me and barking happily, its tiny tail wagging. It jumped into my lap, licking my face. I couldn't help but chuckle. When I could lift my head, I looked back at the dock to see Sir Hugh pacing back and forth, yelling at his men to find a boat. But they grew smaller and smaller as we moved farther out into the harbor, safe at last. And that's the end of Chapter 30, and we'll be back tomorrow with Chapter 31. Bye, everybody.